In the Hunter Valley, the centre of attention was not so much the hundreds of health workers on strike, but the 40 nurses at Curry Hospital who voted to stay on the job. The signs were clear that Curry's clerical staff weren't working, but the hospital's executive officer, Colleen Aldred, discouraged the Nurses Association from explaining why they hadn't gone out as well.
Wish to be interviewed on camera for the NBN Strait. That's your decision.
The branch secretary of the Nurses Association, Christine Millett, refused to appear on camera to explain as to why her members weren't striking today. She said that while the nurses were against the hospital cuts, they decided for a variety of reasons to appear for work. She wouldn't go into what those reasons were, but she did concede that it was ironic that the nurses were at the forefront of trying to save Wallsend Hospital, yet refused to strike today. The 70 health workers attending a hospital cuts rally at Cessnock were disappointed and disgusted by their Curry colleagues' decision.
As a union, I thought once the majority rule, then everyone went out regardless of what you felt.
I think the staff at Curry Hospital are endeavouring to keep that hospital operational, and they have concerns that if they do go out today, Dr Smythe will use it as an excuse to close their hospital.
Mayor Callaghan's disappointment extended to the community for not getting behind the rally and the push to maintain the coalfields health services.
The germ and the infection in the hospital health system is spreading, and it's spreading to us.
Like the other health institutions in the Hunter, Singleton Hospital was relying on volunteer labour to do the most basic tasks. 2/3 of the geriatric patients were sent to their families for the day. For those who couldn't move, they had to rely on relatives coming to them. Cheryl Houston had a double workload, caring for her mother and grandmother, but she still supports the nurses' strike.
Absolutely, absolutely. If anything, we need more hospital beds, more staffing and more assistance.
For the Perth Wildcats, that's got to be a travel. No, it wasn't, says the referee. Watterson goes to the ball. There's Crawford, a ton of time. He gets the Perth Wildcats. Green, thought about the three, gets in the paint. Oh, great reject by Peter Hansen. Indeed forced the turnover, but they need a couple of threes in a hurry. Michael Johnson's got the ball, just fire it up, NJ. He does so from a long way. Oh, good smasher! The game was only seconds old when Kiwi winger Greg Lexman scored. Packed with provincial quality players, the New Zealand police side had walloped both their Sydney and New South Wales country peers in recent games, and a makeshift Newcastle team did well to hold them for the next 10 minutes. Then a crucial mistake, a kick to Lexman's wing, and he had try number 2 on the board. The hat-trick came up moments later when the Kiwis put through a kick of their own. Ring-in State halfback Anthony Eckert was recruited to give the locals some class, but it was Newcastle constable Tony Hogg who had the crowd cheering. Newcastle was spirited but lacked the skills of the Kiwis, who were simply so classy it was almost criminal. Final score, New Zealand Police 78, Newcastle Police 10.
Following a review of casualty services throughout Newcastle, the Royals Accident and Emergency Unit will be closed by early December. Dr Smythe says that since the John Hunter opened in March, the Royals Casualty Unit has been operating more like a first aid station than a busy city service.
For example, ambulances have not been going to the Royal Newcastle Hospital Casualty since March. the average number of people coming to that casualty is less than 30 a day. And the majority of those cases, the overwhelming majority, are really matters that could be more appropriately dealt with by general practitioners.
And that's precisely who will be on duty in the city. Dr Smythe wants GPs to see many of the patients who are currently presenting at the Royal.
We've started discussions with general practitioners in the Newcastle city area, the proprietors of the medical centres in the city area, and looking to make sure that there are adequate after-hours services there.
In more serious cases, ambulances will continue to take patients to Belmont, the Mater and the John Hunter hospitals. According to the ambulance service, patient care will not be compromised by the axing of the Royal's casualty unit.
I don't think it will make any difference as far as our service is concerned. Well, it hasn't been used for some time now, and I think we've coped quite effectively.
Dr Smythe estimates the closure will save the health service more than $500,000. Some of the money will be used to upgrade the emergency department at Belmont Hospital. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
It's been well documented that the Breakers' start to their first NSL campaign has been encouraging, and after 2 matches boast a 50-50 record. This Sunday they meet Preston in Melbourne, and the squad hasn't been finalised, with an injury cloud hanging over the captain Andy Koska and Dominic Longo. Koska played with a chronic groin strain last week against South Melbourne, but was a tower of strength, scoring a great individual goal to shake the visitors. Preston's season so far has been up and down, hammered 5-1 by South Melbourne in the first match, and then turning that dreadful form into a stunning reversal with a 2-0 win over Sydney Croatia. According to club sources, Preston will be unchanged, and on their home turf of Connor Reserve will pose a real test for the BHP Breakers.
Carnivale brings people from all ethnic backgrounds together in a spirit of fun. As well as an opportunity for some clowning around, there was a chance to entertain the crowd. Shops spilled out onto the street, offering passers-by a range of taste sensations. These three didn't have time to appreciate the cuisine. They were too busy trying to win the Spaghetti Grand Prix. The festivities will continue tonight.
In Cooks Hill Fire Station's control room today, the operators were thankful for a quiet panel with no red lights flashing. Officers were expecting a busy day, but apart from a few spot fires around Lake Macquarie, their fears were unfounded.
We had a very easy day. I think it's been due to mainly to the people heeding the request from the fire brigade that they report all fires and to be very careful when they're out in the bush.
But firefighters are concerned about what tomorrow will bring, with gusty northwesterly winds expected and temperatures to climb as high as 38. All units are on alert.
The men are on standby, additional crews are on standby, the appliances are still in the backyard. There are men on standby if required for the control room.
Many of the officers rostered on today had fought last Wednesday's devastating bushfires, but District Officer Waldy is hopeful that tomorrow will not be a repeat of Black Wednesday.
Well, I've just been inspecting the area. I don't really think it could be a remake of Wednesday because of the lack of bush, but there still is a lot of bush out there to burn.
The
The blaze began at around 10:30 this morning in bushland behind the Gretley Colliery. The area is crisscrossed with dirt roads and tracks, which firefighters hoped would contain the fire. But as winds blew up, flames left across this wide access road beside a large reservoir. After quick action by fire crews, the outbreak was quickly brought under control. With forecasts of high temperatures and strong winds, there were fears of a repeat of last Wednesday's devastating fires. But today's blaze stayed well away from residential areas. And in the wake of fires at Lake Macquarie last week, the Council has announced plans to speed up approval of development applications for properties destroyed in the Black Wednesday blaze. In the Upper Hunter National Parks and volunteer firefighters have been battling to contain a bushfire at Mount Isabel in the Yengo National Park. It's been burning in rugged country since the middle of last week, but today it began heading toward farming areas north of Paynes Crossing. The area is inaccessible on the ground, so water and firebombing from the air has become the main weapon in the fight to contain the blaze. Meanwhile, fire breaks have been reinforced around the edges of the park, and firefighting teams and equipment have been moved into place to attack the blaze when it moves into more accessible areas. By late this afternoon, a National Parks and Wildlife spokesman said immediate danger to farming property had been averted, and if weather conditions hold, the blaze should be under control by tomorrow afternoon. Alison Peters, NBN News. Sadness was not the only emotion felt among the parents and children at the service's farewell session this afternoon. The centre's directors are furious with Lake Macquarie City Council and the Department of Community Services for taking too long to decide the fate of the facility. The council condemned the present building, but is yet to decide where the centre can move to. And the department has revoked the centre's licence. The directors are hopeful of moving the service to the Julestown Shopping Centre. The issue comes before council tonight. Even if the shopping centre proposal is approved, the move won't take place for at least 4 weeks. The directors say in the meantime the 180 children who rely on the service have nowhere to go.
Situated on the corner of Main and Sturt Streets in Cardiff, this is the service station that will house the underground tank. The proposal has the approval of council, but not the local residents.
This LPG gas seems to be a very volatile gas, and it doesn't need much to set off an explosion. We're amongst it.
Cardiff residents have already had to endure a liquid petroleum gas scare. Earlier this year, bomb disposal experts were called to another service station to defuse an explosive situation. Locals say the new tank would be much larger and far more dangerous. Just as disconcerting is the way the proposal was approved. Despite the residents' fears, the issue wasn't even debated by the Lake Macquarie City Council. In the fortnight following the local government elections, Lake Macquarie Town Clerk John Rankin was given the authority to act on the council's behalf. He decided to approve the proposal before it was debated by the aldermen.
The new council received the report to discuss the matter, and they took the opposite view to what the delegated authority under the town clerk had taken. And that's where the confusion lies.
Even though the new council eventually discussed and rejected the plan, it's unlikely the town clerk's decision will be overturned.
We would have to pay compensation, and more than likely we would be challenged in court. And I've been advised by the planning department that we would more than likely lose our appeal.
Mayor Doug Carley will call for a full report in 2 weeks' time when Mr Rankin returns from a holiday in England. The residents aren't so patient and will call on the Ombudsman and Local Government Minister Jerry Peacock to investigate the incident.
If they make mistakes like that and they can't do anything about it, well then I think the people have got to worry about it.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
This is how close the fire came to engulfing parts of West Wallsend High School. Within minutes it had jumped the nearby golf course and was raging toward the school. Students were quickly evacuated to the front of the grounds, but even then many had to be treated for smoke inhalation. With fire crews tied up in other areas, teachers and students were left to fight the fire on their own. They were able to save the school hall and at least one demountable from certain damage.
This particular fire jumped a golf course, which is about a mile jump in one hit. Landed in the back of the school, and then the tea tree scrub virtually exploded. It went up very, very quickly.
Today, those students, staff and community representatives were thanked for their efforts by Department of Education head Alan Beard. Students like Brad Shelton and Adam Hoken tell how quickly the fire closed in.
I was in the hall and just heaps of black smoke coming. You couldn't see where we were going, and the fire was just started on a tree and it just went up like it jumped the golf course out of there.
Full of our hats with water, and we running over and we just in pitch black and we couldn't see anything. Just hard to breathe. I was really scared then.
Also receiving thanks today, students and staff of nearby Barnsley Public School. They too were forced to evacuate the premises.
Well, I don't believe sport should ever be part of those kind of controversies, and maybe this is one way of equalising the playing field.
After nearly 2 decades of international sporting isolation, South Africa has been given the OK to rejoin some of the world's playing fields. Just yesterday, the CHOGM Conference made the initial steps towards a reconciliation, and already New South Wales Sports Minister and Upper Hunter member George Souris has called for a Hunter team to lead the way.
It'll certainly be a challenge, and we all thrive on challenges, and I'm sure netball will be the winner overall.
A team of netballers should be leaving to play regional teams in South Africa probably in July or August next year. According to Del Saunders from the Newcastle Netball Association, players will be chosen not only for their on-court skills but also for their diplomatic abilities. It's expected a team of hockey players from the Illawarra will also be touring.
The Water Board has launched a campaign to encourage us to use less water, but so far that has had little impact on water levels in the region. Figures today show that the board's combined storage stands at 65.3%, with monthly usage at 6.1%. At this rate, the Hunter will run out of water within 10 months.
The rate of depletion of the storages is still far greater than what we'd like at this time of the year.
Water usage naturally increases during the summer months, but if the board has its way, it will be less than the average used in winter.
Currently we're dropping storages at about 6.1% per month. We'd like to get that down to 5% if we could. We've still got a long way to go in this summer, and if we continue to deplete at the present rate, we're going to run out of water faster than we need to.
Last night's rain had little effect on water storage levels. According to Mr Michel, it was enough to just wet the ground. If there is no rain and consumption does not fall, then the board will have no choice but to impose restrictions.
We'll certainly look at restrictions if nothing changes. If people continue to consume water at a high rate and we don't get beneficial rains, then within 4 weeks I would imagine we're into restrictions, and that will mean the banning of fixed sprinklers.
The volume of shipping movements to and from Newcastle Port is very much at the mercy of tidal flows and existing technology, but the MSP Hunter Ports Authority has managed to dramatically ease the bottleneck. The authority has drawn up new ship handling guidelines based on the high level of experience of harbour pilots and increased technology to open the port as never before. Coal carriers will have dramatically upgraded access to the port and improved departure schedules. Smaller tonnage ships not involved in the coal trade will have almost unlimited entry and departure. The Hunter Ports Authority says the changes to ship handling are so dramatic they'll be a key part of a sales package they're taking personally to our biggest trading partners in Asia. Hunter Ports Authority executives will travel to Japan and China on a 2-week tour of our major trading ports. Minding the fort, Harbour Master Neil Morrison, who believes the mission will be of great significance.
Well, that's one of the reasons for announcing it at this stage, so that the port visitors going to Asia can announce this at the same time as they're holding the Japan-Australia Coal Conference. Knowing the Japanese, it will certainly be probably the most important piece of information that will be conveyed to them in this tour.
Christie's in London was the scene overnight of the auction, which saw Newcastle City Council bid successfully for this. Newcastle, New South Wales, looking towards Prospect Hill. It's a work currently attributed to convict artist Joseph Lycett. Converted and adding Christie's commission, that means $58,000, close to the City Council's limit, the money provided by a grant from Port Waratah Coal Services.
We saw the painting as a very significant part of Newcastle's history, and of course the coal industry has been associated with Newcastle for that length of time. We felt it a great opportunity for PWCS to be able to bring something back to the community in Newcastle.
The painting depicts Newcastle in 1817-1818, looking from the northeast towards what's now known as the Hill. It was a penal settlement under military control. At the time, population 700 and at least 4 cows. Attribution for the work has oscillated between Lycett and the commandant of the time, Captain James Wallace.
At the moment we're still calling them Lycett pictures, and although we've bought this as a Wallace, I think when people see it and compare it with the other two in the collection, whoever it is, it'll certainly by the same artist.
The painting went back to England with Captain Wallace and has been there ever since, but now it will be joining 2 other works of the time, strengthening the historical content at our Region Art Gallery.
I think it'll be tremendously interesting for people to come in and have a look at it, and also we'll have the other 2 so they can see our holdings of these very early and important Newcastle paintings.
Mr. Bradshaw has already begun arrangements to have the painting shipped out. It could be here early next month.
The Disaster Welfare Centre was established just 4 hours after the earthquake in the Binny Shell at Broadmeadow High School. Days later it moved to this office in King Street. But with almost 2 years having passed since the disaster, the government has decided it's time to wind down the service.
Good afternoon, the Disaster Recovery Centre.
Since the earthquake, more than 5,000 claims for assistance have passed through the office and around $4.5 million paid out by the department. But as the city rebuilds, the needs of the community are changing.
Very much no, it's outstanding issues where people may have been negotiating with their insurance company or where damage has shown up very late and people are requiring some assistance in restoring their property.
Originally 50 staff were appointed to the centre. That has fallen to just 8. Most were only employed on a temporary basis. During its time, though, the centre has also dealt with a Mount Tamborine bus crash, 2 floods and the recent bushfires. If another disaster should hit this city, then the centre will be revived within hours. The centre will officially close in December, but the lessons learnt after Australia's first fatal earthquake will be a valuable model for the future. Jodie McKay, NBN News.